This is the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast, presented by HoosierIllustrated.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast, presented by HoosierIllustrated.com. I'm joined by Kyle Staley. I'm Drew Rosenberg. Big show today, episode 40. Kyler, can you believe we're on probably more than 40 in total because of some of our emergency podcast reaction episodes, but 40 full episodes.
40 full episodes of Talking About the Hoosiers. First of all, thanks for everybody that listens and comments. And for the people that do listen and don't comment, please comment and hit that subscribe button as well. So we want to hear from you guys. We want to react to what you guys hear. But yeah, 40 episodes in. Been a lot of highs talking about Indiana, talking about the Hoosiers, and then a lot of lows. It's been kind of at a low point recently, as you could say, when it comes to Indiana basketball. But hey, we're going to talk all about it, and we're going to see what we can say about it.
Yeah, I mean, we love the comments, whether you're calling us squeakers, which has happened before, making fun of Kyler's ugly, god-awful, ugly sweatshirt that he's wearing right now.
This thing's cool. A lot of the older fans that will love the old school NBA and stuff are going to love this shirt.
Yeah, I don't think anyone loves any Lakers gear, but, you know, that's coming from me. But let's jump right in. Last time we saw Indiana basketball, I don't even know what words to use to describe it other than utter collapse against Maryland. It was weird because it wasn't like a game they had control of for the majority of, but when they took control late, it felt like they were going to hold on and get the win, and then everything that could have went wrong in the final 38 seconds did go wrong. And Indiana came out with a loss in a big spot where they really needed a win.
Yeah, I think that was a must. I mean, a lot of them have been must-win games, you know, especially when you turn the calendar to 2025. And for Indiana, you know, they dropped their last two, and those were two games that I felt that Indiana could win to really help get their quad one stuff back up. Right now, they only have two, and, you know, they had control versus Northwestern. At Northwestern, I thought the way that they were playing, they were going to win that game, and talent was going to take over that game. But obviously, they collapsed in the second half, allowed 54 points, and Northwestern being, you know, a better team than what their record shows, taking care of business at home. And then Maryland, you think, okay, Assembly Hall, advantage Hoosiers. The crowd, I was there in person. The crowd was, you know, electric. I thought they were pretty good. It wasn't as negative as what it was, you know, Illinois wise. I think there's a lot of, you know, positive spirits and more supportive spirits, I would say, a more supportive energy, I would say. But that game versus Maryland, Maryland pretty much had control of the entire game. Indiana just kept it within striking distance a lot. It was pretty back and forth, I thought, for a lot of times. And things got, you know, nerve-wracking. You get to the final 10 minutes. Maryland had bumped the lead up to 9. Then you're like, oh, here we go again. But, you know, credit to Indiana. They fought back. And, you know, guys like Anthony Leal, Miles Rice, those guys played really, really strong minutes for Indiana. And they got it within, you know, they ended up taking the lead because of these strong plays. And like you said, you thought that Indiana was, okay, this is home. The crowd's on our side. We put a lot of pressure on Maryland, you know, for them to come out of a victory, but it was a total collapse. You know, the final minute and a half, 2 minutes, total collapse by Indiana. Pretty much Mike Woodson said it, talking to Don Fisher on Monday on his radio show. Anything that could go wrong went wrong for Indiana. And, you know, of course, they have that questionable no call where it was a travel double dribble or whatever like that by Maryland, which obviously it was something there. I was surprised there was no call there, but you can't blame the refs for being in that situation. You know, Trey Galloway had a chance to steal the game, you know, missing the front end of a 1-and-1, something a senior guard should not be doing. You know, with that type of pressure on there, a senior guard should be taking care of that. But obviously, and then that really, really weird sequence where Indiana tried to get the final shot off, wasn't executed. There was a lot of confusion on the floor. Just bad. And overall, it's just Indiana's now 5-5 in the Big Ten, and things look very, very bleak right now for Indiana. Yeah. It's not positive in Bloomington.
Yeah, it's frustrating, as you probably heard something fall in my room.
Drew was so mad that he slammed something.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the little things with this team that's the frustrating part. You know, we know Trey Galloway's not the best free throw shooter. He's got to make those free throws, but just even like the build up to that, why is Trey Galloway getting the ball in that situation when you have Miles Rice on the floor, who is a very good free throw shooter? Mackenzie Mbako, Anthony Leal. Like, I know Anthony Leal percentage-wise, but Anthony Leal has been nails when it mattered most. Like, you have guys that have, like, made free throws at a, like, much higher clip. Like, get them the ball. It's the little things, and it's defending three-point shooters. We saw it against Northwestern.
Well, here's the thing. You talk about the free throws. Sorry to cut you off, but you talk about the free throw shooting. Kenzie Mbako and Luke Goody weren't even in the game.
Yeah,
that's a coaching problem right there.
Yep.
A major coaching problem.
Mm-hmm.
You could say whatever you want about their defense, especially in Mbako's or whatever, but you take that risk a little bit, and they should have been on the floor. But go on.
No, yeah, and it's a lot of the little things. I mean, closing out on shooters. Trey Galloway was late on that closeout on the Rodney Rice's final three, but even like not just that play. Maryland shot 12 of 24 from three, but it was really just three guys: Selton Miguel, Jacoby Gillespie, Rodney Rice. And you looked at the scouting report; those were kind of the guys you had to like keep off the 3-point line. And the rest of this Maryland team wasn't going to be an issue. But those three guys went 12 for 23. Indiana, it's 2 games in a row now. We see them kind of like lackadaisical when it comes to closing out on shooters, and like it feels like Indiana wants teams to beat them from 3, which is a recipe for disaster, especially when this team is not the best 3-point shooting team. They had a good 3-point shooting performance against Maryland, 7 for 17. I think most will take that, 41%. But you can't let shooters just be uncontested like Indiana has done all year. And it's just so frustrating to watch because nothing has changed.
It's a broken record at this point, and there's no hope that they'll correct it. Yeah. They got 10 games left this season. The season's not over with by any stretch of the mean. These 10 games, still a lot of opportunity on there, whether we, want to just chalk up this season as a loss or whatever, but still a lot of opportunity there for Indiana to kind of change it a little bit, at least for this season. But when it comes to the defensive side, I think you make a good point. I do think that Indiana, whether Mike Woodson, the coaching staff, the players want to admit it or not, I do think that they are challenging the teams who beat them by the 3. And guess what? All their losses, teams have shot really, really well from the 3. Yeah. Even the games that they've won, the teams have shot really, really well from the 3. I really can't think of one game where Indiana did a good job of closing out, and that's been a problem since
last year. Go back to last year, yeah.
You can probably even go back to Trace's senior year too. I do think, if I can remember correctly, they did struggle with that as well. It's just something that's never been corrected with Mike Woodson. And Mike Woodson obviously talks about how he's a defensive-oriented coach and, defense first, offense second, but defense hasn't been there. It's been really pathetic to watch, and I think it's been the most disappointing thing about this team because, even if they're having off nights on the offensive end, if they would have just played some defense, in those games that they've lost and stuff, there could have been 1 or 2 at least that they would have won the game just strictly on playing really good defense and just showing effort. I do think that the effort has been there for Indiana the last 2 games and the last 2 losses. I do think that the effort's getting better. And I think a big reason for that is you're getting guys in the game that need to play, that want to play. Anthony Leo, Luke Goody, Miles Rice has played really, really good. Omar Ballo, ever since his little fiasco, at the end of the year, has been phenomenal. He's pushing for first team All Big Ten, honestly, just the way that he's been playing. But, going back to that Maryland game, nothing ever just really looked easy for Indiana. There always looked like the entire game there was some confusion going on, and I think a lot of it had to do. And look, I'm a big Malik Reneau fan, big Malik Reneau fan. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think Woodson just, saw that Malik was healthy enough, and he went back to old habits. Indiana was playing their best basketball when they had the one big in there. And, there were times in the game where it was just Ballo because Malik Reneau, kind of gave Mike Woodson forced his hand to play smaller, or else I don't think Mike Woodson would have done that. But due to the foul trouble that Malik Reneau had, but it was questionable that when they were having that. Kind of that Price is Right type of moment where there was a lot of cheers, a lot of boos and stuff when they were trying to sub people out on that final play. One of those guys that came out was Omar Ballo, and he kept Malik Reneau in, in that situation where Trey Galloway was positioned, where he was positioned underneath the basket on the baseline. The best play that Indiana could have done was just a tip in, and I think Omar Ballo could have easily tried to do that. It was just a poorly, Mike Woodson can talk about, I'm going to kind of call BS on this or whatever, but Mike Woodson can talk about, we put the play together. It was just poorly executed. I don't think that anybody on that team that was in the game knew exactly what to run. And I think that you got to go on the coaching staff in that situation.
Yeah. It seems like if there was a play, it's been like that all year. It feels like we keep hearing that we need to execute, need to do this, and that, and it's the same things over and over again. It's the rebounding is not nearly the problem it was. That's pretty much been like corrected. I know they lost the rebounding battle. Probably could have been better on the defensive glass against Maryland, but it wasn't like the reason they lost that game. And it's defending shooters, like closing out on shooters, being in the right place. And at times it feels like Indiana basketball, it feels like they're going through the motions. It feels like they're super lackadaisical. Miles Rice is one of, the biggest problems when it comes to this, because there's two Miles Rices, and we saw both of them against Maryland. The first half Miles Rice, where he's kind of just, he brings the ball up, going through the motions, isn't really like looking to score or attack. And then there's the second half Miles Rice. I don't know what Woodson or anyone said to him in the locker room at halftime, but something lit a fire under him. Because that's the Miles Rice Indiana needs. They need him looking to score. They need him aggressive, because when he's aggressive, it opens things up for everyone, not just himself. And Miles Rice is so quick and good with the ball in his hands. He can score the basketball. And he can score a lot for Indiana if he's given the opportunity. But this team needs him to be in attack mode more often than he is. It feels like half the time he's, just kind of playing, like chilling, relaxing. The other half, he's ready to go. And when he's in that attack mode, he's one of the best point guards in the Big Ten. But it's getting that more consistency.
Well, consistency is the word for this team, and it's been like that forever. Not really, other than that stretch that they had where I think they won 5, 6 in a row or whatever. Mm-hmm. Even then, they weren't super consistent. It's just we talked about the balance of this team. I think we were a little bit too quick to say balance of this team, because it's a lot of lopsidedness, if that's even a word. For this team, it's just because there's players that just have way too many off nights. Mackenzie Mbako definitely has been that guy. Miles Rice has definitely been that guy. I think Omar Ballo has been the most consistent player for this team by far. And he's probably the best player. And then Luke Goody's obviously been playing really, really well. Made some big shots, when Indiana's needed it. But, at this point, it's just, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And you got 10 games left in this season. And like I said, there's still so much opportunity on the table. These next 4 games are brutal. But at the same time, if you can win some of these games, you look like a team that's probably on the right side of the bubble. And it's annoying the fact that we're talking about this team being on the bubble, because that shouldn't be the case at all. Going back to previewing this team, we said that this team needs to be a top 25 team all season long. Needs to be, a 5th seed or higher, things like that. And they just haven't done that. And it's just been a lot of lackadaisical. You said it. I think that's been the word. A lot of too chill, a lot of too calm, a lot of, hey, we just got to continue to keep working and stuff like that. No, it's time to, you got a lot of fire under somebody. This coaching staff's got a lot of fire, and Mike Woodson's got to just coach better. It's just as that. He's got to be better at that. And there shouldn't be any confusion where, like, oh, should we give a foul here or something like that? Like, no, you got to know these things, and you can't just, fall asleep out there. And it seems a lot of times that's what happens with the coaching staff. Mike Wilson specifically, things just fall asleep and things get out of hand really, really quickly. And with that, the players get out of hand and then they get confused. They get confused on the floor. Yeah. So every part of this basketball team just got to be better in many, many areas. And it's just unfortunate that we're the end of January and that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, and we talked about it earlier in the year, like identity. This team still doesn't have a true identity in my eyes. Nope. You don't know what to expect, night to night. And, we've talked about the stretch they're currently in. You look at their next 6 games, like this is the season, the next 6 games. You have at Purdue, at Wisconsin, both ranked, home against Michigan, then you're at Michigan State, another ranked team, home against UCLA, and then back home against Purdue. Indiana, if they lose out, which at this point in time, there isn't a game there I'm confident they win. Now you're 14-13 and your tournament hopes are pretty much dead unless you probably win out from there. Like Indiana, this is a make or break point, and it doesn't seem like it's kind of clicking for this team. Usually teams get to this point of the season and they start playing with their hair on fire, They understand that it's make or break and they have to do whatever it takes, and it doesn't seem to be, that message doesn't seem to be clear.
Well, here's a positive thing you can kind of look at, like a trend that you can kind of look at. Indiana, I think, other than, the kind of falling off in January or whatever and losing games embarrassingly, they won some games in January, unlike former Mike Woodson teams. But Usually around this time is when, even going back to Trace's senior year, usually around this time, this is when Indiana basketball starts playing their best basketball.
Mhm.
And you got to hope that this is the case, because this next stretch, you don't even have to go with a winning record this next stretch, really. You just got to get some wins, man. And the fact that Indiana hasn't taken care of home has really, really, really hurt them. I still, when you look at teams that they're playing, I still think that Indiana has the best talent on paper. I really do. And that's crazy to say, but they do have a lot of good talent on there, but they haven't been able to put it together consistently. They haven't been able to put the pieces together. There's still a lot of selfish basketball on the floor. And that's the problem with them, because they're going to go into Purdue. It's going to be an uphill battle, even though that is your rival, and you hope that you play with the fire lit under you. You're going to see a Purdue team who's really good about playing as a team. They're not the most talented in the world individually, but when they put it together and they're really, really well coached, they can make teams really pay for that reason. And Indiana could struggle with that if they don't play as a team. And that's the same exactly with Wisconsin, Michigan, especially Michigan State. If Indiana doesn't play as a team, they're going to get blown out by all of those games. And honestly, if Dusty May and Michigan were to come into Indiana and blow them out, and that's a very real possibility in my eyes. There's going to be a lot of conversations. There's going to be a lot more gas, a lot more oil poured on this fire right now that's going on within Indiana.
Yeah, and at least in my eyes, I think if the season ended today, Mike Woodson no doubt is fired. I think he's, hasn't shown anything where it's like, yeah, we should keep this guy. This program has gone downhill since Trace Jackson Davis left, and it's one of those things you want to see, improvement, and we have not seen that over the last 2 years. If anything, we've seen like the opposite. This team it feels like they're getting worse when other teams are getting better at this time of the year, and it's just one of those things where if this team can't show improvement, why this program needs to go in a different direction.
It's some kind of curse, honestly, if you think about it. Going back to Yogi Ferrell. When Yogi Ferrell left, Tom Crean went downhill. Trace Jackson Davis left, Mike Woodson went downhill. And it's just some kind of curse. Archie Miller was just trash all 4 years. But it's just a curse that Indiana can't seem to get out of. They got to figure out how to be consistent as a program. It's great that they get once in a blue moon these generational players like Yogi, like Trace Jackson Davis, like those guys. But they got to figure out how to be consistent. And you thought that with Mike Woodson, with his ability to recruit, the really, really talented players out of the portal, get some McDonald's All-Americans, you thought that was going to be the case, but it just hasn't been. There's, like I said, a lot of talent on this team, a lot of talent. But there's just something that's so off with this team. And I don't want to say culture. I know that's an easy thing to say with the culture. I do think this team does want to win. I really do think that they want to win. Look, Mike Woodson don't want to lose. Mike Woodson doesn't want to get fired. These players don't want to be an embarrassment to the program. Yeah. They want to win. They come into work. They put into work. And you've seen flashes where this team, they'll play good and be like, that's Indiana basketball right there. There it is. And then it just disappears. So this next stretch is going to be brutal. We got Purdue on Friday. Indiana's got Purdue on Friday at Purdue. Last year's was really, really ugly. But, Purdue obviously doesn't have Zach Edey. Ohio State just showed that they can go in and Purdue can lose at home. But it's going to be really, really hard for Indiana unless they can put it together within these next few days to go in Purdue.
Yeah, last year we watched Zach Edey hit a 3 against Purdue or against Indiana, and that was kind of, that felt like a combination of everything. Not only is Purdue's program in such a better place than Indiana is, it's Zach Edey who is not hitting threes ever in his career, hitting a 3 against his rival, the team that can't defend the 3-point line. And this Purdue team, they don't shoot a high volume of threes. I think they're middle. I think they're 263rd in the country in attempts per game, but they make 38.4%. So this is one of those things where, Indiana's going to be like, all right, let's let them beat us from 3 because they don't shoot threes, but they shoot them at such a high clip and they make a good percentage of them that it could be a real problem come Friday night.
There's a lot of things that Matt Painter will throw at Indiana, a lot of things. And Braden Smith, obviously, is the head of the snake, is what people have been calling him and stuff. He's been playing phenomenally. could be Big Ten Player of the Year, just the way that he's been playing. So
and TKR too. TKR has been unbelievable.
TKR has been great. That's a guy that I'd watched in high school and, didn't really fully see what his potential was, but man, he's been phenomenal. One of the best front court players in the country. Caleb First has stepped into a much larger role. He's been great. And then you throw in like Miles Colvin, Cam Heide, those guys that have just been playing really, really good basketball for Purdue. So for Indiana, I mean, at this point, it's hard to say that they're going to go in and win. But let's just be pretty honest here. It's going to be, I don't want to say nearly impossible because anybody can beat anybody in the Big Ten, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be very, very hard. For Indiana, it's just all about playing with pride. I think when you go into this game, playing for Indiana, knowing that it's a rival, and you need to play your best basketball. If you go in there and they get beat by 30 points, it's going to get really, really ugly, really, really fast. Indiana's got to, keep the crowd in check. They got to, try to not let Purdue get those big plays. And Indiana's got to be able to, because Purdue's going to get on a run, obviously at some point in the game. Indiana's got to be willing to show a willingness to kind of punch back, kind of like they did with Northwestern, I think. But obviously it's going to be on a grander scale because winning at Mackey is really, really hard. So Indiana's got to make things uncomfortable for Purdue. And they got to, play like the talent that they got on the floor. So it's right now, it's hard not to see. It's hard to see Indiana going on the road to beat Purdue, but if they can play the way that they're capable of, who knows what can happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. There's a reason why you play the games, but, they do have an opportunity. These next 6 games, I talked about how brutal they are. Indiana goes 500, 3-3. Now you're looking back and you're going, all right, 17-10. Like, this is like potential for a tournament team. So there is the opportunities in front of them. But Kyra, let's talk about something a little more positive.
Let's talk about some fun stuff.
You want to start with Kel'el Ware? I think that's
speaking of the last year, let's talk about Kel'el.
Yeah. For those who don't follow the NBA or haven't been following the last month, Kel'el Ware is now the outright favorite for Rookie of the Year. He's been balling since the start of January, where his role kind of picked up. 15 games, he's averaging 13.5 points, 7 rebounds, 1.5 blocks, shooting 46% from 3. Last night, he had I think he had 19 and 10 and an overtime win for the Heat. Like, Kel'el Ware has really come on as of late. And, I remember when he got drafted, you and I talked about how we saw potential for him to start alongside Bam, but we didn't see that coming until maybe years 2, 3, 4. Kel'el Ware is starting right now for the Miami Heat every single night alongside Bam Adebayo, 2 bigs, and it's working really well for him.
2 bigs? You said 2 bigs is working right now? Who would have thought? Who would have thought? But obviously I don't follow the Heat as much as you're a big NBA fan and stuff. Is a lot of the reason why Kel'el Ware is able to gotten this opportunity is because of the Jimmy Butler stuff.
That has a bit to do with it, but like the way they're using him it's similar to Indiana, where he's like catching lobs off the pick and roll and a lot of that stuff, but it's also like he's a catch and shoot 3-point shooter, and like he is taking multiple threes a game. It's not like
he's the one facing the floor, not Bam.
Yeah, he's taking 3 threes a game since the start of January, and he's making them at a high clip. If you watched last night, I mean, a lot of his looks, I think almost all of them were alley-oops off pick and rolls or like dunker spot type drop passes or catch and shoot threes.
I mean, I did see that dunk where he put someone on a poster on the
Jonathan Isaac, one of the best shot blockers in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, Kel'el's been great, and what I have seen him, it is pretty similar to how Indiana used him. Last year it was more Malik Renew in the paint, and Kel'el would be that one to kind of stretch it out when needed. Him shooting 3-pointers a game. That's more than Indiana. I think I can only remember. I feel like he only really shot like 1 or 2 a game at Indiana, but no, Kel'el's been great, man. I think we said when he got drafted, he has a potential to be the steal out of this very, very weak NBA draft class. And it's still a very, very weak NBA draft class. And he's taking advantage of it. And honestly, I wouldn't have thought really just because how, the Miami Heat was structured or whatever, and you expected him to just be mostly a bench player. Yeah. I would not have expected him to be rookie of the year. And for the fact that before we hopped on here, he's at plus 110 odds, the outright favorite right now to win it. And honestly, with the way he's been playing, this really just came out of nowhere because didn't he get, shifted down to the G League at one point?
Yeah, he did early in the like season. He was played a lot of G League, and then kind of towards the end of December rejoined the Heat, and has since kind of his role has really grown ever since the start of the new year.
Yeah, and we saw the potential in him when he was playing in the NBA Summer League. I mean, he really, really showed out in the Summer League and showed his potential. But I love it. I mean, Kel'el, talk about a guy that just, disappeared, after his freshman year at Oregon. And then he came to Indiana. Mike Woodson did a really, really good job with developing him specifically, even though last year obviously was a tough year for Indiana. Did a really, really good job in Kel'el. And it's really, really showcasing. He went to a great organization. Eric Spoelstra is a great coach. The Heat just have a culture. It's all about the culture. It's all about the team. And he's going in there and he's working his butt off. And I think that's the coolest thing for him. Really, really proud to see what Kel'el's doing. I think he's going to have a successful NBA career. And the way that he's been playing, he's going to be a top 5 big, in the next few years when he starts hitting his prime, because he can do a lot of things on the floor. He's got the size, he's got the length, he's got the skill. And it's really, really fun to watch him do his thing.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen some of the people who Kel'el Ware is like being compared to right now.
Who is it?
But it's Victor Wembanyama.
Isn't he only like a year old, or he's probably younger than Kel'el?
I think they're probably the same age. They're probably about the same age, or maybe Ware might be a year older. It's whatever, but it's fun to see because you look at Kel'el Ware and like, yes, he doesn't play as like he moves like Wembanyama. I don't know if he plays like him as much as like people want to like make that comparison, but if you ever want to watch how skilled Kel'el Ware is, watch his high school mixtape at 17, 18 years old. He was he was playing a lot of point guard. Like he was handling the rock, sidestep threes, like dribbling through defenders at 7 feet, like stuff you're seeing Victor Wembanyama do. Yeah, he hasn't really gotten that chance in the NBA, but you never know. Like a guy who is clearly that skilled. Like the question with Ware has never been about his like skill. It's always kind of been like the mentality, the work ethic,
the motor.
And, Mike Woodson clearly, helped unlock him a bit, and him going to the Heat, they talk about that Heat culture, but it's a real thing. And it was like, it was a match made in heaven for him.
Yeah, it totally was. I did do a little fact checking here. Victor Wembanyama is 21. Kel'el's still only 20 years old, which I thought that was a little bit surprising. But obviously Victor can just do a little bit more on the floor. Victor almost for a lot of it plays like a guard in a lot of sense with his size. But it just goes back. You saw Trace Jackson Davis, explode as a rookie for the Warriors. You saw Kel'el Ware explode this year as a rookie for the Heat. Obviously, I don't think Omar Ballo obviously is going to have that type of a trajectory or whatever. But Omar Ballo is playing, I think, the best he's ever played.
Oh yeah,
in his college career, he's opened up a lot more. He's a great passer. His body type is really, really well right now. His conditioning is really, really strong. He's rebounding the ball very, very well. And you can say whatever you want. I know there's going to be a lot of people here that are just so sick and tired of hearing Mike Woodson and blah, blah, blah and stuff. But you got to give credit where credit is due, even though you want to be stubborn about it. Mike Woodson's done a really good job on the 3 bigs that he's gotten, his 3 main bigs. And even Malik Renew, to a certain extent, obviously hasn't taken that huge of jump. But, he's done a really, really good job with the primary bigs on this team and getting them to that next level. And for Omar Ballo, I don't think he's going to get drafted by any means, but I do think that he will make an NBA roster. I do think that there is probably a spot for him somewhere. Just because he's shown he can unlock a little bit more in his game. So we'll have to see about it. But Kel'el Ware, man, what a season he's having. I really, really hope that he ends up winning Rookie of the Year because that'd be really, really cool to see.
Yeah, that would be awesome. He's been awesome to watch, and watching his growth has been really special, and he's only going to continue to grow moving forward in this season. But some other, former Hoosier news, Indiana football center Mike Katic. I don't really think I need to give a much in-depth, description of Mike Katic. If you've watched Indiana football, you follow the socials, you've seen his personality, who he is. So it makes perfect sense. He's foregoing the NFL draft and joining Barstool Sports.
That one kind of came out of nowhere for me. I ain't gonna lie. I used to be a big Barstool guy. I still follow them to a certain extent, but I guess from what I've been reading, I guess they had announced his hiring, maybe a few weeks ago or whatever, maybe the start of the year in one of their podcasts or whatever.
They let it slip.
Yeah, they let it slip, but which is crazy because if you think back at it, before Kurt Cignetti was hired, Mike Katic was entered into the NFL draft. He was in there, so obviously, football is a really, really tough sport, especially for an offensive lineman to have a longevity in. It's really, really hard. It's really, really hard on your body, especially with that size. So you got to applaud those types of guys that realize, like, hey, like, long term, this probably isn't the best move for me to play in the NFL for however long it is, but I like it. I don't know what Barstool's doing. They got John Gruden in there now. I don't know if they're just building a team or whatever they're trying to do, but it is cool. Mike Katic's a really, really fun personality guy. He's a really high energetic guy, really positive guy. One of the best leaders I think Indiana football's ever had. It was really, really good, obviously, for Indiana this year. So I think that's really, really cool. I'm excited to see, an Indiana presence in Barstool. So that'll be fun to see what he can kind of do in that kind of media type of world.
Yeah, it's grown. The Indiana presence at Barstool, you have I think the guy's Liam Blutman, and then it's like White Boy Rick, I think the guy's name is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you have some, like, the Barstool presence is growing. Katic had a funny clip. I don't know if you saw, first thing him and John Gruden meet, the first thing John Gruden asked him is to get into a stance.
And didn't he say when John Gruden tells you to get in the stance, you get in a damn stance?
Yeah, it'll be really funny. Kind of like the story of how it happened. It seemed like Portnoy was at Hoosier Hysteria, is what I heard, and then Anthony Leo reached out to Portnoy on behalf of Katic, and then Portnoy was like, have Katic email me. Katic, I guess, sent some clips of him in the media of him just being himself. Because if you've been around Mike Katic, you just know he's just kind of got like, he's like a magnet, kind of just like people just like gravitate towards him because he just has that kind of personality. He's a funny guy.
He's a big teddy bear too.
Yeah. And I guess Katic sent some clips. He said on the Yak, he had like, I think if you look, I forget what episode of the Yak it was. I think it was this week, but like he was on that, like the Barstool show, the Yak, and like talking about it. He sent 3 clips and Portnoy like immediately hired him. So, good for Mike Katic. It'll be fun to see some more, maybe he'll get an Indiana Hoosiers Barstool show or something like that, but it'll be fun to see what Katic does in that, kind of environment.
I think the best part about it is too, with all these college, I think the Barstool people are pretty biased when it comes to the top dogs when they talk about college football a lot, especially the SEC or whatever. It's going to be nice to have an Indiana presence in there, to stick up for the Hoosiers and stuff. But really, really awesome for Katic. That's a really, really cool thing for him to do. And if I remember correctly, I don't know if you remember this, Drew, but Dave Portnoy's had some run-ins with Indiana before. Do you remember with him and Miller Kopp when they were going at it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they had a fun Twitter interaction.
Yeah, I don't remember Miller Kopp had
Kopp had a wide open dunk and he couldn't dunk it. He went up to dunk it and couldn't get up.
Okay, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay,
and but it was when Indiana, I think it was Woodson's first year when Indiana beat in Michigan to pretty much get into the tournament.
Oh yeah, that is right. So, but it's fun. Barstool, they're a monopoly, man, and they've grown, from a very small unknown to just, probably, I don't even know what you call it, sports media or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're on top of it, man. But that's really, really cool for Mike Katic, and it's nice to have some positivity when it comes to Indiana news and not really just go on the negative when it comes to the basketball program right now.
Yeah, for all the Indiana news covering, basketball, football, women's basketball, Hoosiers and the pros, all of that, make sure you're following Indiana_FRN on Twitter and Facebook, and check out the HoosierIllustrated.com website. Also, make sure to subscribe on YouTube. It means a lot to us, and it's super easy for you. Just literally click the button. It does nothing to you. All it does for you guys is now you get to see our stuff pop up more often. But it makes a huge difference for us. So please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast, episode 40. We'll be back next week.